The starship moved through space like a ghost. Its hull absorbed light instead of reflecting it. No energy signatures leaked from its engines. To anyone watching, there was nothing there at all. But inside the Times' silent horizon asterisk, Captain Lee Jiwoo stood on the bridge with his eyes fixed on the view screen. "Distance to the Council patrol?" he asked quietly. 4,000 kilometers and holding," replied Lieutenant Han Junho from the tactical station. "They haven't detected us." Jiwoo nodded slowly. It was always like this. For 300 years, humanity had watched the Galaxy Council from the shadows. They observed, recorded, and learned everything about the aliens who ruled the stars. And the Council never knew humans existed. Dr. Park Minji stepped up beside the captain. She carried a data tablet filled with information about the alien ships ahead. "Same patrol pattern as always," she said. "They're not even scanning properly. Just going through the motions." She said. "There was. They think this sector is empty," Jiwoo replied. "Why would they look carefully at nothing?" Minji smiled slightly. "The aliens on those ships belonged to a species called the Draxon. They were tall, reptilian creatures who considered themselves superior to most other species in the galaxy. The Draxon were one of 12 races that controlled the Galaxy Council, the governing body that ruled over hundreds of worlds. They had advanced technology, powerful weapons, and most importantly, they had arrogance. They believed no one could challenge them. Jiwoo had studied the Draxon for years. He knew their ships, their tactics, and their thinking. He knew they looked down on species that lacked psionic powers or their preferred energy weapons. Humanity had neither of those things. To the Draxon, humans would be primitives. Less than nothing. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Council Patrol," announced Specialist Choi Yuna from Communications. "They're broadcasting on all standard frequencies." "Let's hear it," Jiwoo said. The alien voice filled the bridge. It spoke in the Draxon language, but the Times' silent horizon, asterisk's computers, translated instantly. "This sector remains clear. No resources of value. No signs of civilization. Continuing patrol route, as scheduled." Jiwoo and his crew listened in silence. The Draxon ships moved away, completely unaware that a human vessel watched every move they made. "They've been saying the same thing for 50 years, Minji muttered. "This whole region is worthless to them." "Which is exactly why we're here," Jiwoo replied. "Earth and its colonies existed in a part of space the Galaxy Council considered useless. The resources were modest. The stars were unremarkable. There were no strategic advantages, so the Council never looked closely. They never sent science teams or survey ships. They simply marked it as empty and forgot about it. Humanity preferred it that way. 3 centuries ago, when humans first developed faster-than-light travel, they had been excited to meet other civilizations. They sent out exploration ships, carrying messages of peace and friendship. Those ships encountered the Galaxy Council within a decade. The meetings did not go well. The Council tested humanity's technology and found it lacking. They measured human psionic potential and found none. They evaluated Earth's resources and calculated their value. Then they made humanity an offer that wasn't really an offer at all. Submit to Council authority. Accept a position as a subordinate species. Allow Council oversight of human development. Give up sovereignty. The humans who received this message brought it back to Earth. The world governments met for months, debating what to do. Some wanted to accept. Others wanted to fight. But a third group, led by a young admiral named Kang Do-hyun, suggested something different. Hide. Admiral Kang argued that humanity wasn't ready to face the Council. Their weapons were too powerful. Their numbers too great. Fighting would mean extinction, but accepting their terms meant giving up freedom forever. So instead, humanity would disappear. They would erase their presence, develop their technology in secret, and wait. However long it took, the plan worked better than anyone expected. Humanity withdrew all ships from explored space. They activated the most sophisticated stealth technology ever created. They moved their colonies to hidden locations, and they watched. For 300 years, they watched. During that time, humanity learned. They studied council technology and developed counters. They observed council politics and understood the power structures. They mapped every council world, every trade route, every military installation, and most importantly, they developed weapons and ships that operated on completely different principles than anything the council had seen. Jiwoo himself had been born into this hidden humanity. He had grown up knowing that Earth was a secret. His entire career had been spent in the Silent Fleet, the military force that protected humanity while remaining invisible. He was good at his job, patient, careful, never taking unnecessary risks. But now something had changed. "Captain, priority message from Fleet Command," Yuna announced. Jiwoo's expression tightened. Direct communication from the Admiral was rare. It usually meant trouble. "Open the channel. Encryption level maximum." The view screen shifted to show Admiral Kang Do-hyun. The old man was in his 90s now, but his eyes were still sharp. He looked tired, though. Worried. "Captain Lee," Kang said without preamble. "We have a situation. 3 days ago, our listening posts intercepted Galaxy Council communications regarding our solar system." Jiwoo felt ice form in his stomach. "Sir, the Council has approved a resource extraction operation in the Sol system. They're sending a fleet to strip mine the asteroid belt and establish a forward outpost on Mars. The operation is scheduled to begin in 2 months." Silence filled the bridge. Every crew member had stopped what they were doing. They all understood what this meant. "They still think the system is uninhabited?" Minji asked quietly. "Correct," Kang replied. "Their scans from 60 years ago detected electromagnetic radiation from Earth, but they classified it as natural phenomena. They believe no sentient species lives there. To them, Sol is just another empty system, ready for exploitation." Jiwoo forced himself to think clearly. "What are our orders, sir?" Admiral Kang was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 3 centuries of waiting. "The Hidden Council has been convened. All major decisions require their approval. But Captain, I need your assessment. You've been watching the Council longer than almost anyone. If we reveal ourselves, if we show them that humanity exists, and that Earth is our home, what happens?" Jiwoo considered the question carefully. He thought about everything he had learned about the Galaxy Council. Their pride, their conviction that they were superior, their history of crushing species that challenged them. "They won't back down willingly," he said finally. "If we simply ask them to leave, they'll refuse. They might even accelerate their timeline out of spite. The Council respects strength, not appeals to mercy." "That's what I thought too," Kang said quietly. "We're out of time, Captain. After 300 years of silence, humanity must speak. The only question is, how loudly?" The transmission ended. Jiwoo stood alone with his thoughts, while his crew waited for orders. Outside, the empty darkness of space surrounded them. But that darkness was an illusion. Hidden in the black were hundreds of human ships, thousands of weapons platforms, entire battle fleets waiting in silence. Earth had stayed quiet for so long. Now the Galaxy Council was coming to humanity's doorstep, completely unaware of what waited for them there. The silence was about to end. The Galaxy Council chamber was enormous. It floated in orbit above the planet Thel, a neutral world chosen centuries ago as the seat of galactic government. The chamber itself was a work of art, with walls that seemed to be made of liquid light and a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. 12 raised platforms circled the room, each one holding a representative from one of the Tier 1 species. Counselor Velith stood on the Draxon platform. His scales gleamed under the artificial light, deep green mixed with hints of gold. He was large even for his species, nearly 3 meters tall with powerful limbs and sharp teeth. When he spoke, his voice carried authority that came from knowing his species had ruled for thousands of years. "The matter before us today is simple," Velith announced. "System designation. Sol 3 has been surveyed and found suitable for resource extraction. The system contains adequate minerals in its asteroid formations and several planets that can support forward operating bases. As per standard procedure, we vote on authorization for extraction operations." Around the chamber, other counselors nodded. This was routine business. The galaxy was vast and empty systems were common. The Council had been exploiting uninhabited worlds for millennia. It was how they maintained their power and wealth. "Are there any objections?" Velith asked, not really expecting any. Silence. The vote was called. All 12 counselors approved the measure without discussion. To them, it was nothing special. Just another empty system to be used. "Excellent," Velith continued. "Commander Thale will lead the extraction fleet. 200 vessels should be more than adequate for a system with no resistance." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Empty worlds are gifts from the universe to those worthy of using them. We are worthy. We shall use them." The session ended, and the counselors departed to their respective chambers. None of them gave the Sol system another thought. It was beneath their notice. In a military preparation facility on the other side of Thel, Commander Thale reviewed the mission parameters. He was Quellan, a species with 4 arms and exceptional coordination. His people were known as excellent soldiers and ship commanders. Thale himself had led dozens of operations over his long career. But this one felt strange. 200 ships for an uninhabited system? His second officer asked. "Isn't that excessive?" Thale frowned. "The Council authorized it, so that's what we'll use. Though I agree, it seems like overkill. The scans show no defensive installations, no satellites. Nothing but primitive electromagnetic emissions. We could probably do this with 20 ships. Why electromagnetic emissions at all, if the system is uninhabited?" "Natural phenomena," Thale said, reading from the report. "Lightning storms on the 3rd planet generate significant electrical activity. The Council's Science Division confirmed it 60 years ago. Nothing to worry about." His second officer still looked uncertain but said nothing more. Orders were orders. Meanwhile, light years away on Earth, a very different meeting was taking place. The Hidden Council gathered in an underground facility beneath the mountains of what was once called Korea. The chamber was much smaller than the Galaxy Council's hall, built for function rather than display. Holographic screens showed data from across human space, while armed guards stood at every entrance. Admiral Kang Do-hyun sat at the head of the table. Around him were the leaders of Earth's government and military. These were the people who had guided humanity through 3 centuries of hidden existence. Now, they faced the most important decision in human history. "They're coming," Kang said simply. 2 months, 200 ships. They plan to strip our asteroid belt and establish bases on Mars. "And they still don't know we're here?" asked one of the civilian leaders. "They think the system is empty," confirmed Ambassador Yoon Jinhwan. The ambassador had spent decades studying council politics from afar. He probably knew more about the council than any human alive. To them, we're background noise, static in their sensors. "Then we have options," suggested another council member. "We could evacuate, move our populations deeper into hidden space. Let them have the Sol system." Several people immediately objected to that idea. Earth was humanity's home, the birthplace of their species. Abandoning it was unthinkable. "We could reveal ourselves peacefully," offered another voice. "Contact them. Explain we're here. Ask them to respect our territory." Ambassador Yoon shook his head firmly. "That won't work. I've studied 300 years of council interactions with other species. They respect only strength and status within their hierarchy. A peaceful request from an unknown species would be ignored or mocked. They might even accelerate their operation out of spite." "Then what do you suggest?" Admiral Kang asked. Yoon stood and activated a holographic display. It showed recordings of Council military operations, diplomatic negotiations, and cultural exchanges. The Council operates on a simple principle: power equals authority. They only respect those who can challenge them. If we want them to leave our system, we must force them to leave. You're talking about war, someone said quietly. I'm talking about demonstration, Yoon corrected. We don't need to destroy them. We need to show them that we exist, that we're powerful, and that attacking us would be costly. Once they understand those facts, they'll negotiate. Engineer Kim Hee-yeon spoke up from his position near the technical displays. We have the capability. Our quantum fold drives make our ships faster and more maneuverable than anything in the Council's fleet. Our stealth systems are 300 years more advanced than their detection technology. And our weapons can disable their ships without destroying them. Without destroying them? Someone asked. Why would we hold back? Because we're not trying to conquer the Council, Admiral Kang explained. We're trying to establish humanity as a sovereign power they must respect. Mercy from a position of strength is more frightening to them than simple violence. It shows restraint, control. It makes them wonder what else we're capable of. The discussion continued for hours. Arguments were made for every option. Some wanted to hide longer. Others wanted full military action. But slowly, a consensus formed. Humanity would reveal itself. But on their terms, at a time and place of their choosing, with a demonstration of power that would leave no doubt about their capabilities. We'll need someone to make first contact, Kang said. Someone who can speak for humanity, but also command respect. All eyes turned to the holographic image of Captain Lee Ji-woo, displayed on one of the screens. His service record was exceptional. 30 years in the Silent Fleet, dozens of successful reconnaissance missions, a reputation for calm judgment under pressure. Send the order to the Times, Silent Horizon *, Kang commanded. Captain Lee will intercept the Council fleet when they arrive. He'll deliver our message. After that, it's up to them how this proceeds. Back on Thel, Councillor Velith met with his assistant, Overseer Krath. Krath was younger, less experienced, but he had a mind for details that Velith sometimes lacked. Is something bothering you? Velith asked, noticing Krath's expression. The Sol system operation, Counselor. I was reviewing the old survey data. The electromagnetic signatures from the third planet are unusual, not consistent with natural lightning patterns. Velith waved a dismissive hand. The Science Division already evaluated it. Natural phenomena. You worry too much. Yes, Counselor, Krath said quietly. But he didn't look convinced. Commander Thale prepared his fleet with military efficiency. 200 ships assembled in orbit above Thale. Cruisers, destroyers, carrier vessels, and support craft. It was an impressive display of Council power. Perhaps too impressive for an empty system. But Thale followed his orders. His crew ran final system checks. Weapons were calibrated. Engines tested. Navigation routes plotted. Everything was ready. The fleet would depart in 3 days, travel for 6 weeks through faster-than-light corridors, and arrive at the Sol system right on schedule. None of them knew that every move they made was being watched. Hidden sensors planted throughout Council space transmitted data back to human intelligence. Humanity knew the exact composition of the fleet. They knew the departure time. They knew the route. They knew everything. And they were ready. On Earth, in the underground command center, Admiral Kang watched the preparations with tired eyes. 300 years. 3 centuries of patience and planning. It all came down to this. Are we making the right choice? Asked one of his aides quietly. Kang thought about it. He thought about all the years of hiding. All the sacrifices humans had made to remain secret. All the possibilities for disaster if this went wrong. I don't know, he admitted. But I know we can't hide forever. The galaxy is too small. and humanity is too large. Eventually, we would have been discovered. At least this way, we choose how and when. The aide nodded and left the admiral alone with his thoughts. Above Earth, invisible to normal sensors, the defense fleet waited. Hundreds of ships holding position in perfect silence. Each one a marvel of human engineering. Each crew trained for years for this exact scenario. On the Times Silent Horizon asterisk, Captain Jiwoo stood on his bridge and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council fleet was preparing to invade his home. They thought they were going to an empty system. They thought no one would resist. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Commander Thale stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Times Eternal Glory asterisk, and surveyed the star system that would soon belong to the Galaxy Council. All ships report successful arrival, his second officer announced. No complications. Begin scanning operations, Thale ordered. Standard survey pattern. I want detailed readings of all planetary bodies and asteroid formations. The 200 ships spread out in a formation perfected over centuries of military operations. Their sensors swept across the system, cataloging everything they encountered. The inner, rocky, planets, the gas giants further out, the asteroid belt between the fourth and fifth planets, and there, the third planet from the Sun, the one generating those strange electromagnetic signatures. Interesting, one of the science officers muttered. Commander, the readings from the third planet are definitely not natural lightning. Thale moved to look at the display. What are they then? I'm not certain. They look almost like communications, but very primitive. Radio waves, television broadcasts, wireless networks, the kind of technology we used thousands of years ago. Could there be a civilization there? Thale asked, feeling a cold sensation in his stomach. Not according to the official survey from 60 years ago, the science officer replied. They classified it as natural phenomena. Run a detailed scan. I want to know exactly what we're looking at. Before the science officer could comply, every alarm on the Times, Eternal Glory Times, started screaming at once. Ships! Shouted the sensor operator. Multiple contacts, appearing right on top of us. Thale spun to look at the tactical display. His blood ran cold. 12 vessels had suddenly materialized around his fleet. Not at the edge of sensor range. Not approaching slowly. They had simply appeared, as if they'd always been there, and his sensors had just noticed them. How did they get so close? Thale demanded. I don't know, sir. Our sensors showed nothing, and then they were just there. The 12 unknown ships were unlike anything in Council records. They were sleek and dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Their design was strange, with angles and curves that seemed random but were clearly intentional, and they were moving in ways that should have been impossible. Changing direction, without visible thrust, accelerating faster than anything Thale had ever seen. Communications coming in, announced the communications officer. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Put it through, Thale ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. The voice that filled the bridge spoke in perfect Quellan, though with an accent Thale didn't recognize. It was calm, measured, and absolutely confident. Attention, Galaxy Council Fleet. This is Captain Lee Jiwoo of the Earth vessel Times Silent Horizon asterisk. You have entered inhabited space without permission or announcement. This system belongs to humanity. You will power down your weapons and engines and prepare to be escorted out of our territory. Thale stared at the screen. Earth? Humanity? He'd never heard of either. This must be some kind of mistake, he said to his crew. Check the records. Find out what species this is. His officers scrambled to search the database. Seconds passed. Then, minutes. Finally, the science officer looked up, with confusion on his face. Commander, there's nothing. No species called humanity. No records of Earth. As far as our databases know, These people don't exist. Everyone exists in our databases, Thale said automatically. The Council had been cataloging species for thousands of years. They knew about everyone. Search again. On the Times Silent Horizon asterisk. Captain Jiwoo watched the Council fleet with calm eyes. He could see their confusion on the sensor readings. Their ships were powering weapons. But slowly, uncertainly, they didn't know what they were facing. Lieutenant Han, Jiwoo said quietly, prepare for suppression pattern Alpha. Disable their weapons and engines. Casualties should be 0. Yes, sir, Han Junho replied from the tactical station. His fingers moved across the controls with practiced precision. All ships. Report ready, Doctor. Park Minji stood beside the captain, watching the alien fleet. They're about to respond aggressively, she predicted. Their pride won't let them back down without testing us. I know, Jiwoo said. That's why we're ending this quickly. On the Times Eternal Glory asterisk, Commander Thale made his decision. Unknown species or not, he commanded a fleet of 200 warships. 12 ships, no matter how advanced, couldn't match that. All vessels, target the unknown ships. Prepare to fire on my command. But before he could give that command, the human ships moved. They didn't move the way normal ships moved. They seemed to fold space around themselves, appearing in one location and then another, without crossing the distance in between. Within 3 seconds, all 12 human vessels had positioned themselves inside the Council formation, each one surrounded by enemy ships. Fire! The Council ships opened fire with energy weapons that could vaporize asteroids. Beams of concentrated power lanced through space toward the human vessels. Every single shot missed. The human ships phased out of normal space just as the weapons reached them, reappearing an instant later in slightly different positions. Then the humans fired back. Their weapons weren't energy beams or missiles. They were pulses of something the Council sensors couldn't identify. When those pulses hit Council ships, they didn't explode. They didn't tear through hulls. Instead, they seemed to ripple across the vessel's surfaces. And then every system simply stopped working. Weapons powered down. Engines went dark. Life support switched to emergency backup. In less than 30 seconds, half of Thale's fleet was drifting helplessly in space. Evasive action! Thale screamed. All ships! Scatter! But there was nowhere to scatter to. The human ships moved between the Council vessels with impossible speed and precision. More pulses. More ships going dark. The Council crews weren't dying, but their vessels were becoming useless hulks of metal. Thale watched in horror as his proud fleet was systematically dismantled. Not destroyed. Disabled. Which was somehow worse. It showed that the humans could have destroyed them if they wanted. They were choosing not to. In 6 minutes, it was over. 200 Council warships floated dead in space. Not one had been destroyed. Not one crew member had been killed. But the entire fleet was helpless. The Times Silent Horizon Times approached Thale's flagship. The human ship was tiny compared to the Times Eternal Glory asterisk. But size didn't matter anymore. Thale understood that now. Commander Thale, Captain Jiwoo's voice came over the communications again. You attempted to seize our system. You attempted to attack our ships. Both actions were mistakes. However, we understand you were acting on incomplete information. Therefore, we are showing mercy. Thale said nothing. What could he say? One of your scout ships has been left operational, Jiwoo continued. It will return to Council space with a message. The rest of your fleet will remain here. Your crews unharmed but confined to their ships. When the Council agrees to recognize human sovereignty over this system, you will all be released and escorted safely to the border. You're taking hostages? Thale managed to say. We're preventing a war, Jiwoo corrected. If we had destroyed your fleet, the Council would send another, and another, until someone wins or both sides are exhausted. This way is better. Your people live. You eventually go home. And the Council learns an important lesson. A docking tube extended from the Times Silent Horizon Times to the Times Eternal Glory *. Thale watched on his internal cameras as human soldiers entered his ship. They wore armor that seemed to absorb light, making them hard to focus on. They carried weapons that were compact but obviously effective, and they moved with discipline and precision that spoke of excellent training. The humans secured the Council crew without violence. They were firm, but not cruel. When some of Thale's soldiers tried to resist, the humans disabled them with non-lethal weapons and carried them to the medical bay for treatment. Dr. Shin Unji entered the Times, Eternal Glory Times, with medical supplies. She was a human doctor, small compared to the Quellan crew, but she moved through the ship with confidence. When she found wounded Council soldiers injured in the brief exchange of fire, she treated them immediately. "You're helping us?" one of the wounded Quellan asked in confusion. "You're injured," Dr. Shin replied simply. "That's reason enough." Overseer Krath, who had been aboard one of the other Council ships, watched everything carefully. He observed how the humans treated their prisoners, how they provided food and water, how they made sure everyone was comfortable despite the circumstances. And he recorded everything on a personal device the humans somehow didn't confiscate. Later, he would wonder if they knew about his recording and chose to allow it. The scout ship that Jiwoo had left operational departed for Council space. Its crew had witnessed everything and would report to the Council within weeks. Thale watched it go and felt shame burning inside him. He had been so confident. The mission had seemed so simple. Enter an empty system and claim its resources. But the system wasn't empty. And now, Thale and his entire fleet were prisoners of a species the Council didn't even know existed. On the Times Silent Horizon *. Jiwoo stood in his ready room and composed a formal message to be sent with the scout ship. In it, he explained humanity's position. Earth and its colonies were sovereign territory. The Sol system was not available for exploitation. Humanity desired peaceful relations with the Galaxy Council, but would defend itself if necessary. He kept the message polite but firm. Ambassador Yoon had reviewed it and declared it perfect for the situation. "Think they'll listen?" Lieutenant Han asked. "No," Jiwoo said honestly. "Not immediately. They'll be angry, humiliated. They'll want revenge. But eventually, logic will prevail. They'll realize we could have destroyed their fleet but didn't. They'll understand that means we're reasonable. And then, maybe, we can talk. And if they send another fleet, then we disable that one too," Jiwoo replied. "As many times as necessary, until they accept reality." Dr. Minji entered the ready room with her analysis complete. "I've been studying the Council crew's reactions. They're terrified, but also confused. Our restraint doesn't fit their understanding of warfare. In their experience, the strong destroy the weak. The idea of defeating someone and then showing mercy is foreign to them." "Good," Jiwoo said. "Fear we can work with. Fear makes people cautious, and caution makes negotiations possible." In Council space, in his chambers on Thel, Councillor Velith would soon receive news that would shatter his world view. An entire military fleet disabled by 12 unknown vessels. A species called humanity claiming sovereignty over a system the Council thought was empty. And worst of all, mercy shown to Council forces, which implied the humans could have done worse. The Galaxy Council was about to face its greatest crisis in millennia, and it had all started because they made one simple assumption. They assumed silence meant weakness. They assumed an empty sensor reading meant an empty system. They were wrong. The Council scout ship arrived at Thel with news that sent shockwaves through the galactic government. Within hours, an emergency session was called. All 12 councillors gathered in the Great Chamber. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. There was no routine business today. No casual approval of standard operations. Today, the Galaxy Council faced humiliation. Councillor Velith stood at his platform, his scales darker than usual, a sign of stress among the Draxan. He watched the footage from the Sol system 3 times before he could bring himself to speak. "This is unacceptable," he finally said, his voice shaking with rage. An entire Council fleet disabled, 200 warships rendered helpless by 12 unknown vessels. And they dare to demand we recognize their sovereignty? Other councilors murmured agreement. The footage showed the human ships moving through space in impossible ways. It showed Council weapons missing their targets. It showed proud warships going dark, one after another. It was a nightmare. But it was Councillor Priya who asked the important question. Priya was from a species called the Minith, smaller than most council races but known for wisdom. Who are they? How did we not know about them? We searched the databases, another councillor reported. There is no species called humanity on record. No previous contact. No survey data beyond the initial scan 60 years ago that classified the system as uninhabited. Then they've been hiding, Velith snarled. Watching us in secret, building weapons to use against us, or they've been avoiding us, Priya suggested carefully. The message they sent was not hostile. They claim we entered their territory without permission. They disabled our fleet, but killed no one. They're offering to release the hostages if we simply acknowledge their sovereignty. That doesn't sound like aggression to me. Velith turned on her with fury in his eyes. They attacked Council forces. They humiliated us. Every species in the galaxy will hear about this. Our authority will be questioned. Our power doubted. No, this cannot stand. We must respond with overwhelming force. I urge caution, Priya said, her voice calm despite Velith's rage. We don't understand their technology. We don't know their capabilities. Sending another fleet might lead to worse disaster. She's right, said Councillor Narek, a pragmatic leader from the industrial Tolvec species. Look at the footage again. Our sensors couldn't track them. Our weapons couldn't hit them. They moved through our formation like we weren't even there. Whatever technology they possess, it's beyond our current understanding. Fleet Admiral Gorvin entered the chamber. He was an old warrior from the Draxan species, veteran of dozens of campaigns. He had spent days analyzing the battle footage, and his conclusion was grim. The unknown species demonstrated complete tactical superiority, Gorvin reported. Their ships can phase in and out of normal space. Their weapons can disable our vessels without destroying them, which suggests incredible precision. And their intelligence was perfect. They knew exactly where we would be and when. What do you recommend, Admiral? Velith asked. Gorvin was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his words shocked the entire council. Negotiation. These humans, if that's what they call themselves, could have destroyed our fleet. They chose not to. That suggests they want peace, not war. We should explore that option before committing to further military action. Unacceptable, Velith roared. The Galaxy Council does not negotiate with unknown species who attack our forces. We respond with strength. We show them that we cannot be intimidated. The debate raged for hours. Priya and Narek argued for caution. Velith and his allies demanded military action. Gorvin warned that another fleet might suffer the same fate. But pride and anger won in the end. The Council voted to assemble the largest battle fleet in their history. 2,000 warships. 10 times the size of the force that had been defeated. Surely no species, no matter how advanced, could stand against such numbers. Admiral Gorvin accepted the command with a heavy heart. He knew this was a mistake. He had seen the footage. He understood what humanity was capable of. But orders were orders. And he was a soldier. On Earth, in the command center deep underground, Admiral Kang received reports of the Council's decision. 2,000 ships, he said quietly. They really don't learn. Should we continue trying diplomatic channels? Asked Ambassador Yoon. Kang shook his head. They've made their choice. We offered peace. We demonstrated restraint. Now we have to show them the consequences of ignoring both. Technician Lim Take worked at his station, monitoring Council communications through humanity's hidden sensor network. The fleet is assembling at Thel. They'll be ready to depart in 2 weeks. Travel time to Sol system will be 6 weeks. That gives us 2 months to prepare. We don't need 2 months, said Major Sora, commander of Earth's orbital defense platforms. We've been ready for 300 years. We've been ready for 300 years. Kang activated a system-wide alert. Every human ship, every defensive station, every military base received the same message. Full mobilization. This was no longer a limited engagement. The Galaxy Council was coming with everything they had. Humanity would respond in kind. The Times' silent Horizon Times remained on station near the captured Council fleet. Captain Jiwoo had tried to make the prisoners as comfortable as possible, under the circumstances. They had food, water, medical care. But they were still prisoners. Still helpless in their disabled ships. Commander Thale requested a meeting with Jiwoo. The human captain agreed, and came aboard the Times' Eternal Glory Times, with a small security detail. "Why are you doing this?" Thale asked when they met in his ready room. "You could have destroyed us. You could have killed everyone, and eliminated all evidence of the attack. Why show mercy?" Jiwoo considered his answer carefully. "Because we're not monsters. Because your crews were following orders based on incorrect information. And because we want the Council to understand something important." "What's that?" "That we're strong enough to destroy you but wise enough not to. That combination should frighten your leaders more than simple violence ever could." Thale was silent for a long moment. "The Council is sending another fleet. A much larger one. They're not going to back down." "I know," Jiwoo said. "We've been monitoring their communications. 2,000 ships. You can't defeat that many," Thale said, though he sounded uncertain. "We'll see. But Commander, understand something. We don't want to be your enemies. We just want to be left alone. If the Council can accept that humanity exists and that this system belongs to us, all of this ends peacefully. Your people go home. We establish diplomatic relations. Everyone benefits." The Council doesn't think like that," Thale replied. "They only understand hierarchy. Superior and inferior. Strong and weak. You've challenged them, so they have to crush you to maintain their authority. Then they're going to learn a painful lesson about making assumptions," Jiwoo said quietly. 6 weeks later, Admiral Gorvin's fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. It was an awesome sight. 2,000 warships spread across space in perfect military formation. The combined firepower could devastate entire planets. Gorvin had fought in wars across the galaxy, and he had never commanded a force this large. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Begin advance into the system," Gorvin ordered. "Battle formations. Sensors on maximum. I want to know if anything moves out there." The fleet moved forward. Slowly, carefully, Gorvin remembered what had happened to Thale's force. He wasn't going to be caught by surprise, but he was about to learn that surprise wasn't humanity's only tactic. "Contact!" the sensor operator suddenly shouted. Multiple ships appearing throughout the system. Gorvin looked at the tactical display and felt cold fear grip his hearts. The humans weren't hiding this time. They were revealing their full strength. Hundreds of ships materialized across the Sol system. Sleek warships, massive carriers, orbital platforms bristling with weapons. And they were all moving with that same impossible speed and precision that had defeated Thale's fleet. "How many?" Gorvin asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "Still counting, sir. At least 500 vessels so far. And detection is difficult. They keep phasing in and out." A transmission came through on all frequencies. It was the same voice as before. Captain Lee Jiwoo. Calm, measured, absolutely confident. "Admiral Gorvin, I presume. This is Captain Lee Jiwoo of Earth. We sent you a warning. We asked you to recognize our sovereignty and leave our system in peace. You ignored that warning and brought an invasion force to our home. This was a mistake. Gorvin opened communications. I have 2,000 warships. You cannot match that number. Numbers aren't everything, Admiral. Your previous commander learned that lesson. Must you learn it again? Gorvin hesitated. Every instinct told him this was wrong. The humans were too confident, too prepared. They weren't bluffing. But he had his orders. All ships, Gorvin commanded heavily. Engage the enemy. The Battle of Saul began, but it wasn't really a battle. It was a demonstration of exactly how outmatched the Galaxy Council was. Human ships moved through the Council formation like ghosts. They appeared, fired, and vanished before return fire could reach them. Their weapons disabled Council vessels. With surgical precision, Major On's orbital platforms released swarms of autonomous drones that overwhelmed Council defensive systems. Gorvin watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. His ships tried to fight back, but every tactic failed. Formation changes did nothing. Concentrated fire missed targets that simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. Even retreat was impossible, because human ships appeared wherever the Council vessels tried to go. In 6 hours, it was over. 2,000 Council warships floated dead in space. Not one destroyed. Not one crew killed. But the entire fleet was helpless, just like Thales had been. The difference was scale. The humiliation was so much worse. Human Marines boarded Gorvin's flagship. The Admiral stood on his bridge, waiting for them. When Captain Jiwoo arrived, Gorvin formally surrendered his weapon. Why didn't you destroy us? Gorvin asked, echoing Thales' question. Because we're not like you, Jiwoo replied simply. Dr. Shin Unji arrived behind the captain, carrying medical supplies. She immediately went to help wounded Council personnel. Other human medical teams spread throughout the captured fleet, treating injuries without asking who their patients were or what side they fought for. Gorvin watched this with confusion that slowly turned to understanding. The humans weren't just militarily superior. They operated on completely different principles. They valued life, even enemy life. They showed mercy, even to invaders. And that made them more dangerous than any weapon could ever be. The news of the second defeat reached the Galaxy Council like a thunderbolt. 2,000 warships disabled. The largest military fleet in Council history rendered helpless in less than a day. And still, the humans had killed no one. They had shown mercy again, which somehow made everything worse. Councillor Velith sat in his private chambers, staring at the footage. He had watched it 20 times now. Each viewing made him feel smaller. The humans had proven beyond doubt that they could destroy the Council if they wanted. They simply chose not to. That choice demonstrated power that Velith couldn't comprehend. We need to talk, Councillor Priya said, entering without being invited. Behind her came Councillor Narek and several others from the moderate faction. Get out, Velith said weakly. No, Priya replied, her small frame somehow commanding despite Velith's size advantage. This ends now. You and your allies pushed for military action twice. Twice we were humiliated. No more. The Council will vote again, and this time... They attacked us, Velith protested, but even he could hear how hollow that sounded. They defended their home, Narek corrected. We entered their system without permission. We tried to take their resources. We sent military fleets to enforce our will. By any definition, we were the aggressors. The emergency council session that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. For the first time in millennia, the council faced a species they couldn't bully, couldn't intimidate, and couldn't defeat. The debate lasted 3 days. Eventually, even the hardliners had to accept reality. Humanity was here to stay. The question was, how to deal with them. Meanwhile, across council space, something unexpected was happening. Overseer Krath had uploaded his recordings from the human capture of the First Fleet. His footage showed how the humans treated their prisoners, how they provided medical care, food, and respect, how they showed mercy to enemies who had come to invade their home. The video went viral across dozens of species. Many of them were subordinate members of the Council, species classified as Tier 2 or Tier 3, species who had been conquered or absorbed into the Council hierarchy. They watched the footage and began asking questions. If humanity could stand up to the Council, why couldn't they? If the humans could demand respect and get it, why were they still treated as inferiors? The Council faced not just a military defeat, but an ideological crisis. Admiral Kang received a message from the Council 3 weeks after the Battle of Seoul. It was a formal invitation to meet with the full Council and discuss terms of recognition. Kang read the message 3 times before allowing himself to smile. "They're ready to talk," he told Ambassador Yoon. "About time," Yoon replied. "Though I suspect we'll have to be careful. Wounded pride makes for dangerous negotiations." Kang assembled a small diplomatic team. Himself, Ambassador Yoon, Captain Ji-woo, and Engineer Kim Hyun. They boarded a human vessel that was designed for diplomatic missions. Unlike the warships, this one was elegant and visible. Humanity was done hiding. The journey to Thel took 2 weeks. During that time, the human ship passed through Council space openly for the first time. Other species' vessels detected them and transmitted their surprise across the communication networks. Humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy. When the human ship arrived at Thel, it was met by an escort of Council vessels. Not an honor guard exactly, but not hostile either. Uncertain, wary. The aliens didn't know how to categorize these new arrivals. The Council chamber had never felt this tense. All 12 counselors were present, along with hundreds of observers from various species. Everyone wanted to see the humans who had defeated the mighty Council not once, but twice. Admiral Kang entered the chamber with his small team. He was old, his hair gray, but he walked with the confidence of someone who held all the important cards in a negotiation. The galaxy watched through live broadcasts as humanity made its first public appearance. "I am Admiral Kang Do-hyun of Earth," he announced in the common galactic language. His accent was strange, but his words were clear. "I speak for humanity and our colonies. We come in peace, but we will not accept subjugation." Valeth started to speak, but Councillor Priya cut him off. "We acknowledge that mistakes were made. The Council acted on incomplete information regarding your system. We are prepared to discuss terms of recognition." "Recognition is a start," Kang replied. "But let's be clear about what happened. Your Council sent fleets to invade our home twice. We defended ourselves with restraint and mercy. We could have destroyed your ships. We could have killed thousands. We chose not to, because we hoped wisdom would eventually prevail." The chamber was silent. No one had ever spoken to the Council this way. The directness was shocking. "Your technology is clearly advanced," Narek said carefully. "Your military capability is formidable, but surely you must see that cooperation benefits everyone. The galaxy is large. There is room for all of us." "I agree," Kang said, surprising many observers. "We don't want to be your enemies. We don't want to conquer or dominate. We simply want to exist as a free and sovereign people, respect our territory, recognize our rights, and we can have peaceful relations. And if we do this," Velith finally spoke, his voice bitter, "what do you offer in return?" "Knowledge," Engineer Kim Hyun spoke up. "Technology, trade, cultural exchange. All the things that species normally share when they meet as equals." "Equals," Velith repeated the word, like it was poison. "Yes, equals," Kang said firmly. "That's the key word here, Counselor. We're not asking to join your hierarchy. We're not accepting a position as subordinates. We're establishing ourselves as a sovereign power. You can accept that, or you can send another fleet. We'll disable that one too. And another. And another. Until you understand what we've been trying to tell you." And what is that? Priya asked softly. That strength doesn't give you the right to rule others. That different doesn't mean inferior. That the galaxy is big enough for multiple powers to coexist. Kang paused. And that mercy, shown from a position of strength, is the highest form of power there is. The debate that followed lasted hours. Some counselors argued for continued military action. Others pushed for recognition. Ambassador Yoon presented evidence of humanity's technological capabilities, carefully revealing just enough to make clear how much more they might be hiding. Finally, the vote was called. 8 counselors voted to recognize Earth as a sovereign power, with all rights and territories. 3 voted against. 1 abstained. It was enough. But Kang surprised them again. We appreciate the recognition, he said. But Earth will not be joining the Galaxy Council as a member. Shocked silence filled the chamber. We've watched your council for 300 years, Kang explained. We've seen how it operates. The hierarchy, the caste system, the treatment of subordinate species. That's not how we want to engage with the galaxy. Then what do you propose? Narek asked, genuinely curious. An alternative. A different model. Kang activated a holographic display. We call it the Free Association. A coalition of species who choose to work together as equals. No tiers. No hierarchy. Just mutual respect and cooperation. Several observers in the chamber stirred at this. Representatives from Tier 2 and 3 species looked at each other with new hope in their eyes. You're trying to divide the council, Velith accused. We're offering an option, Kang corrected. Any species that wants to remain in the council can do so. Any species that wants something different can join us. The choice is theirs. Within weeks, 5 species announced their intention to leave the council and join the Free Association. They were smaller powers, species that had always been treated as lesser by the Tier 1 races. But their departure weakened the council's authority significantly. Within months, humanity established embassies on a dozen worlds. Captain Bei Wujin commanded the diplomatic escort fleet that ensured Earth's ambassadors traveled safely. Dr. Oh So-hyun represented humanity to the Council's Science Directorate, carefully sharing select technologies that could benefit everyone. The galaxy entered a new age. Not one dominated by a single power, but one with multiple centers of influence. The Council remained strong, but it was no longer unchallenged. The Free Association grew steadily, as more species chose equality over hierarchy. Captain Jiwoo returned to the Times, Silent Horizon Times, after the diplomatic mission concluded. His ship resumed patrol duties, but now, as an acknowledged protector of Earth rather than a hidden guardian. The work was similar, but somehow it felt different. Better. Humanity no longer had to hide. Dr. Minji established the first xenocultural exchange program. Aliens visited Earth to learn about human society. Humans traveled to other worlds to study alien cultures. Understanding slowly replaced suspicion. Admiral Kang retired 6 months after the council negotiations concluded. He spent his final years writing a history of humanity's 300-year isolation and the events that ended it. His last chapter focused on a simple truth. Patience and wisdom had served humanity better than aggression ever could. But Earth's defensive systems remained active. The stealth network continued monitoring galactic events. The fleet maintained readiness. Humanity had learned an important lesson from its long hiding. Hope for peace. But prepare for war. On Thel, Counselor Priya met privately with Counselor Narek. They discussed the future of the council and what reforms might be necessary to prevent further defections. They changed everything, Narek said, looking at a holographic image of Earth. 1 species. In less than a year, they showed us what we'd forgotten, Priya replied. That power without wisdom is meaningless. That fear doesn't create loyalty. That strength and mercy aren't opposites. Do you think the council will survive this? If we adapt, yes. If we cling to the old ways, No. Priya smiled slightly. Either way, the humans have given the galaxy something valuable. Hope. The hope that change is possible. In the Sol system, on a blue planet orbiting a yellow star, humanity looked up at the stars they had hidden from for so long. Those stars were no longer threats. They were possibilities. Earth had stayed quiet until the Galaxy Council made a fatal mistake. They had assumed silence meant weakness. They had assumed an empty sensor, reading meant an empty system. They had assumed their power made them untouchable. They were wrong on every count. And now the galaxy was learning what happens when you underestimate patience, wisdom, and the quiet strength of those who choose not to fight until fighting becomes necessary. Humanity had spoken. The galaxy was listening. And nothing would ever be the same.